This is Chaye Alexander, and I am pleased to bring you interviews with some of your favorite musicians, entertainers, and artists worldwide. This time we have the acclaimed artist Laurel Holloman, and here's what she had to say. Laurel?
Yes, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good.
You're going to London
tomorrow.
Your show is in London.
Yes.
Well, I guess that's a great segue to get into the show. Now, let me just preface this whole thing by saying I like art, and actually I love art. I have my styles that I go for. My friend pointed out to me that I go for streetscapes and scenery and things like that. Like I love the Parisian street scenes and stuff, but I don't know a whole lot about it. So, I study.
Well, I'm thinking that you like streetscapes because you like jazz. There's something in those lights at night, and then when painters paint them, there's like a nice illumination and a nice,
I
reflection.
Love on a whole, I'm a diehard music lover. Period. You cut me a note, will pour out.
It's all good.
It's who I am. This is who I've been. But it is something about that. It's personal. Art really is personal. And that it's just what moves you. And that just moves me. Like in my media room, there's this painting of a smoky jazz club. So I guess I do kind of like that whole thing.
I completely get it. When I paint, I listen to like Etta James. I listen to Amy Winehouse, which I just got into because I just flew to Europe, I guess about a week ago, and I watched a documentary on the plane. And I was like, wow. I was like, she was amazing.
She was, and sadly, I got into her just before she passed.
I'm a late bloomer with her too. I was kind of like, I was listening to her in a cab in Italy, and the cab driver was a fan, and I was like, why am I listening to more of this? And then I slowly started to discover her music. I'm like more, I was in New York, but I'm kind of more like, Jeff Buckley was a huge influence on me. So I know that's not exactly jazz, but Jeff Buckley and Nora Jones, just some more slow that kind of thing. But I guess I'm from Chapel Hill, so it's a big music scene.
It is. I was going to say that too. It's like it may just be a little bit of where you're from and how you were raised. So
growing up in the South, you just hear all sorts of music, like all different kinds of music. And I lived with a musician for 5 years, so I definitely respect the art. Yeah.
I tell people that I love music. It's like, I love music. Well, what do you play? Well, nothing. Well, do you sing? No. But what? I can't like music. It's just where I'm from. It was part of my household, and it's just where I'm from. So,
Where are you from?
Originally, I'm from, I was born in Jamaica and raised in New York.
Yeah.
And I now live in Columbia, South Carolina.
Oh, cool. So how did you discover my art?
Well, just in Googling you. I'm a fan of yours. I'm a huge fan of you as an actress and of your work. And I Googled you just to see what was going on with you because I watched the L Word back in 2005, 5, I think, somewhere thereabouts. Mm-hmm. And I might have seen season 1 and 2, but then a whole lot happened in 2005. This stuff happened. So just recently, within the past 2 or 3 months, I finished watching the L Word. Talk about late bloomer.
It was a very, very good series. It was definitely a good gig for me, and I had a lot of fun. There was some great talent on that show.
Great show. Great show.
Yeah.
I started Googling. I'm like, okay, so what are they doing now? What's going on with you and the other cast members now? I mean, I've seen Kate in other shows, and Jennifer, obviously, she's had some shows, but, the ones I don't hear about are the ones I was curious about. So I Googled you first, and it's like, wow, she's an artist. Who knew?
Yeah, I did something really, really different. I kind of ended up in a situation where I painted first for charity, but I had always painted all along, and my ex-husband was in graduate school while I was doing the show, so I was constantly around artists and architects, and at one point we had a 10,000 square foot space where we were painting or designing or doing things, and so it was sort of like a side thing, but that just keep going, and And then I donated some paintings to charity, and then it sort of kind of rolled into something else. But it wasn't any kind of planned thing. It was something that just sort of started to evolve. Like, I think a lot of women, especially at the age I was at when the show ended, sometimes people have second chapters. And it was the perfect time to just sort of stay in it and just, you know, just knock out another TV show. My quote was good. Everything was good. Like, just stay right in it. But I guess what started to happen was I had the same enthusiasm I had in my teens and 20s towards acting. And I kind of hadn't had, and this is not a reflection of the show because I love doing the show, but I guess after a lot of years of doing the same character and doing press, it became more like a job. And I mean, I guess I come from that sort of like indie film New York scene, and I was just sort of like, I wanted to like grab onto something else, but I didn't really know it was going to be art, and it just sort of happened. And it was one of those things where, and you understand this because you love music, when you paint, like, you don't need anybody to be around. You know, you could just go paint in your house, paint on your deck. You can paint, well, I have a studio, so, I've had several studios, but I had a studio downtown in a crazy bad neighborhood, but full of other artists, and it was very inspiring. And, you know, when you act, you gotta get cast, and you gotta be on the show, and then the network has to pick it up, and there's like a whole sort of process to it. And I guess what started to happen is, I just started to paint all the time, so I was sort of having this sort of addictive creativity. But it wasn't in my mind thinking, I thought, oh, I'll just do this, like, right, between this and my next gig. Mm-hmm. And then I just launched the show in New York, and I had a collector buy 4 or 5 pieces. And then in 2 months, I had like a plane ticket to Italy, and it was an art foundation, and they had a bunch of different artists, and they're like, we just think you're really talented. We want to see what you're going to do. Like, we'd like to see you keep painting, and are you going to go back and do TV? And I was like, well, yeah, probably. I mean, that's probably the reality of it. But they said, well, what if you didn't? What if you kept painting? And I said, I don't know. I mean, I guess I could give it a try. And then that led to, God, I don't know, 6 or 7 shows now, and the Venice Biennale, and the Florence Biennale. I mean, it just sort of kept going. So, and there was always this moment where I was like, oh, there'll be this window. I'll go back. I'll go work with a friend. I'll go do an independent movie. I'll go do guest spot on TV. But there was the reality to it where I was like, oh, I actually don't have time. Like, there's actually not enough time, because once you get on an exhibition schedule, the deadlines are pretty intense. So it just sort of happened. I mean, there is a moment where I watch all my friends, and I'll see them and stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, they're so good. I love watching this. And I'm like, don't I want to go back? But I don't miss it. So that was a surprise for me. So.
But you studied art, visual arts.
Yeah, I mean, I was always a little more confident. I had one art teacher at Chapel Hill that was like, you should keep going. But what he was really focused on was I was doing a lot of sculpture. And so painting has been something I've had to really dig a lot deeper into. And I just love it. I guess I love the process of it, and I love putting together shows, and I still feel like I have so much to learn. And it sort of turned into something that's, you'll probably understand this. I was jealous of musicians and people that could just sit in their house and put a guitar on their lap and write a song. I guess in some ways actors are always, and I'm not the first actor to say this, they're all kind of jealous of all the people that can be creative in a quiet place. And I mean in an isolated moment. Like a painter can paint and a writer can write a novel. But if you're really going to be on a show or be in a play, you got to have a whole crew, right?
Yeah. Unless you're doing a one-woman show, but yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's true. And I wasn't about to be like, oh, I'm going to go do a one-woman show. But especially after the L Word. So, and I think the L Word set the bar for me. So I kind of thought, wow, this is going to be tough. Like, what do I want to do after a show that I felt had a social impact, political impact, that I felt deeply connected to in a lot of ways. And to be really honest, there's very few TV that draws me in that way.
There's very few TV shows, period. I mean, it's all about reality TV nowadays. I'm almost afraid to commit to a show because when I do, it gets canceled. So, yeah, I mean, I can imagine a show like The L Word would have set the bar because it was a great show. I had to watch it all over again because I forgot what happened in season 1 and 2. So I sat there. I was like a junkie. I was. And I watched this thing and I was like, wow, you know, the writing, the acting, the direction, I mean, everything about it. And I'm an armchair director, you know, everything that I watch, I'm like, you know. And so I can see how that would happen. But, I mean, have you, like, just stepped away from acting altogether? You know?
Yeah, once I took basically the sponsorship, which meant a commitment to 2 to 3 shows a year, they asked me to step away, which meant I had to tell lawyer, manager, agent, and everybody that I'm out. And it was a real scary thing because I've been basically in that world since I was in my 20s. I've just been doing it forever. And it was an interesting kind of feeling. It was like this feeling where you kind of feel like you're about to jump off a cliff, like, oh, this is the only thing I've ever known, and this is pretty much what I do, and this is what supports my whole family. And but I just did it. I did it. I leased a gorgeous studio in Silver Lake. I started painting larger sizes. I started traveling more. I started seeing more art. I met more curators. I guess in some way I had like a graduate school program without it being graduate school, but with all the right people. And in a strange way, I did it in a very safe way because I think being an American actress, it would be harder to do it here, but I did it all in Europe. So my first solo show was Paris, and then my next solo show was Venetia. It ran during the Venice Architecture Biennale, and then Berlin was another show. And these were all solo shows, so it was just I was just sort of having to step up pretty quickly with high-produced, really complicated shows with large pieces. And it was kind of like, I guess I had the stamina because I had been in the film industry, because when you shoot a series, you have to have a lot of stamina because you work really long hours and you work late. You know, if you're on an hour drama, I know what all those schedules are. And then this was also my thoughts too, is like, God, I have 2 daughters and I'm a single mom. How am I going to be on another show? Like, I'm not going to be able to put them to bed. It's going to be really complicated. And, you know, I mean, granted, doing those type of exhibitions takes time too, but mostly with painting, you kind of painting more during the day. For me, I paint really early in the morning. Kind of more like writers do, and then I paper off in the evening. But you still are on a deadline. But what I started to realize is I didn't really want to be on location anywhere. I wanted to be in LA. I wanted to know where I was going to be. I wanted to be able to get my daughters after their after school program, that kind of thing. So it was a combination of like a creative choice and a life choice. Like both of them sort of came simultaneously. Does that make sense?
It does. Stability for them.
Stability. Yeah. And it was scary because it was a little bit of a step back because I was like, wow, I know what I can do in the film industry. I know the kind of security I can have here, so I don't know what this is going to be. But now I'm running my own studio and it's totally working, you know, and in a really kind of comfortable way. So I can kind of do just shows I want to do. And I do think that, you know, calculating things so you can have creative freedom is really important, whether you're a musician or actor or whatever.
Right.
You know.
I guess that kind of leads me to a question that's kind of lingering out there on the web, you know, and you kind of answered it, but I guess for your fans that are waiting even to this day, you know, this very day, this moment, for the revival of the L Word and the L Word movie and all that stuff, so that's just off the table for you because of your...
Well, I mean, I'm friendly with everybody, and if there was talk of it, I mean, I would always entertain it, just like anyone else would, but I mean, I probably walked off that set 7 years ago, so even though it's still sort of circulating around, I kind of feel like that window, you know, like, you know, Sex and the City, that window stayed open, and it became a big moneymaker for those girls, and I mean, I kind of feel like it hasn't sort of come back. They did the L Word reality show, and, you know, there was always talk about doing some sort of movie, but it never really sort of cycled back around. So I didn't think much about it. It was just more like a little carved space, because that would be something I would consider doing again. And I got offers on a couple of independent films and a television series, and I didn't do anything. So, I mean, I said no. So, but I guess to do another L Word, that would be different. But I kind of feel like maybe that that window's, I mean, to be honest, I think that window has closed. I assume it has.
I don't know. I don't think
maybe
so.
not.
I don't think so.
Jennifer and I would be like, we'd be like, oh, we'll be doing, you know, one day we'll be doing the award and we'll have walkers and we'll be like have canes. We'll be like, I love you, sweetie.
Yeah, you know, I'm telling you, it blows my mind. It really does. I mean, granted, I was a fan of the show. I loved it. But at the same time, I'm not, you know, starting a petition, bring it back. I'm like, okay. You know, it was great. You know, I think it could have ended better, yes, but we're not going to go there.
I know, don't go there. You know, I haven't even watched the last episode. That's just how I had to deal with the whole thing. I haven't watched every episode, but I try to watch most of them. But after shooting the last episode, I kind of thought to myself, and this is no disrespect for the people that created it, because I think everybody's so talented and amazing, but maybe it was an emotional thing for me. I was like, you know what? I just don't think I can watch it. And I didn't. I've never seen it. So while I was working on it, I was a little like, really? This is where we're going?
Yeah,
but you know, it's really hard to please everybody when you wrap up a show. That's for sure.
But that's just it. It pleased nobody. You know, nobody was happy with it at all.
They should do a movie and like fix that.
They should. And you know, it's created a cult following. That's what it is.
Yeah, it has. I've definitely noticed that. Yeah.
But is there anything at all that, you know, thinking back, is there anything about the show or any regrets as it relates to the show, I guess is what I'm asking?
No. I mean, here's kind of the way I look at it. I'm 5 years immersed myself in the art scene, and I'm succeeding in it, and I'm loving it, and I'm enjoying it. And I always thought, God, if I were to ever, and trust me, there were many conversations with different girls and trailers on the L Word. We all talked about, what do you want to do after this? Like, do you want to go to graduate school? Do you want to keep acting? Like, there's a lot of super talented women on that show that have more skills than just acting, you know, music, art. People talked about going to law school, different things. Because I think somehow being on a show for that many years, you start to, it's very time consuming, and it affects your personal life a lot. So I think a lot of people are like, wow, I don't know if I could go right into another show. You got to really love it to go right into another show. And for me, when I look back at the show in general, and to go specifically back to your question, I don't have any regrets, because I kind of feel like I just jumped in, and I was hungry, and I loved it, and I loved the script, and I was like, jump in and fought for my character. She's a tricky character. It was hard to play a bisexual character on that show, and I kind of fought for her truth and to make her stronger at times and different things. And I loved working with Jennifer. She's incredibly talented, and we just had instant chemistry, you know. And so it was one of those things where I think somewhere towards the end, because I was doing a lot more painting, I was thinking, I'm probably going to maybe do something different. But I thought I would just maybe go to graduate school for art or do something. I wasn't quite sure how it was going to manifest. And I thought maybe this is the show I go out on. You know, like maybe this is the end of me acting. You know, do I think I might do something else with film? Yeah, but I think I would want to be behind the camera, especially after painting for a while. You know, so I think in some ways I don't have any regrets, because it was sort of like, I think I knew I was going to stop acting, at least. I think I was pretty clear about that. Wow. I think it started to percolate the last 2 years. It's not anything I shared with hardly anybody. No, I don't think so. I shared it with Rachel Shelley, who I became very close with, and I shared it with Mia, you know, and because they're also incredibly talented, smart girls that were like thinking about doing other things. And Erin Daniels, who's an incredibly talented designer and was always talking about doing something with design. And I went back and I shot that last season, and I had just adopted a little baby, and I had a 3.5-year-old and a newborn on that last season. And you're juggling a lot at that point. And then that affects your life. So, you know, I think people, especially people that have little children, get that. They're like, whoa, yeah, that's almost impossible, you know. But you do it. You don't even think about it. You just do it. You take them to set, you show up, you do it. And so there might have been a part of me that I thought maybe a couple of years after that, I was just maybe taking time for the kids, but I realized I was actually gearing up for something else. So,
which feeds your soul more, would you say? I mean, you've done acting, and now that you're painting, which does it for you? I mean, which really just feeds you? Painting.
But I will not lie to you, I miss the people that I met acting. I miss being, people, they see painters and then they see a painting and they go, oh, that's so great, that's so cool. But I don't know if they really know what it looks like to actually do it. It's like, I got a 24-piece show in London opening up in just a few days. It took me an entire year to paint. And I started at 8:30 in the morning and get done at 6. And then I go in on Saturday, work again, and I work again on Sunday. It's brutal, but at least I can end the day. The light, even I like natural light and the light from a studio, but you don't paint at night that much. It's very painful on your eyes. And the light in your studio is not as good. So painting at night is not as much fun, to be honest. And it's harder. But the kind of repetitious, the meditative part of painting is what I like. And also I'm a huge music person, so I love just blaring any kind of music and working and painting. And I guess I didn't realize that I was much more of an isolating person and more of a loner. When you're on set, you probably have about 30 minutes to yourself before there's somebody with a walkie-talkie outside your trailer telling you to come set again. So you're like, oh, okay. But I'd say 5 years of painting, there's been moments where I'm like, God, man, just go to a movie. I just want to be around a group of people. But every time I say that, I have a museum also for next summer. I have a New York show that I just got. Every time I think I'm going to go back or do something, there's something in front of me with art or Biennale, And I've grown up a lot. I've learned how to do proposals. I've learned how to do all sorts of things that I have to say, I love, because they're just much more academic than an audition. Do you know what I mean? And it's getting to be an older woman. I'm like, man, I like it. This isn't, no one cared about what I wore today. No one cared about I had the right shoes on. I just did something that was outside of the physical part. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's not to say I don't love the shoes I have from Elwood, because they're pretty great.
The wardrobe was pretty cool.
Yeah, who would have thought we would have had all that good stuff? But, we had some talented people, talented makeup and hair and wardrobe people.
Although I don't know how you walked around in those heels.
I don't.
All day.
Jennifer can do it really well. I'm terrible at it. And even today, I live my life in Nikes and Converse and flip-flops. And I still, there's a couple of those shoes I can't even walk in. I was like, how do you do that? And she'd go, you do it like this. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that. I could do it just enough for the scene, and then afterwards I was taking them off. And no one knows this, but when you're on TV, as long as you're standing in the right height, if your shoe's not in the shot, you don't have to wear it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, can I put on some of my Uggs or something?
But, most times I see you, most photos and videos on YouTube, you're wearing boots.
Yeah, I'm a boot person, yeah.
Wow.
Boots and tennis shoes and things. I just like things to be comfortable.
Speaking of photos, I recently spoke with Mickey Turner, because I just got turned on to her book.
Yeah, her book is really beautiful. Yeah.
It is. Before I got the book, one of the photos I saw online of you was the one she chose for the book. And it's such a natural pose with the abstract in the back, and it seems candid, but somewhat also purposeful. And
well, that's hers. That's her talent. She's got a real eye for capturing that kind of stuff.
Speaking of abstract, and keep in mind, I studied enough before this interview to know about realism and abstract, so I initially thought you painted abstract until I saw the work for the Innocent exhibit.
Yeah, I do both. Okay. I was going to do another abstract show, and then I had been working on a painting of my daughter, and I was never really happy with it. And I just kept painting more and more. And then I thought, all right, maybe I'll just keep going a little bit further with this. And I never thought I was going to do it for a show. It was really more for me, right? And then some people came in the studio and they're like, you should show these. These are really beautiful. And it just sort of kind of kept developing. And, to be really honest, I think everybody, you have your favorite musicians. I probably have my favorite painters. And My favorite painter is a German painter named Gerhard Richter, and he painted a lot of portraits, mainly in the beginning, and then he also started to paint later a lot of abstracts, and he didn't really define his style, and he kind of rebelled against it. I mean, he's probably considered one of the best painters in the world. And I thought, you know, if I'm going to learn anything, maybe I'll just paint portraits and I won't show them, but it'll help my abstracts. And so it was more, in the beginning, it was an exercise. It wasn't a planned exhibition. And then it was one of those things where I just kept enjoying it more and more because I was shooting all of my models. So then it became a little more of like, oh, well, I'm like photographing my friends and then now I'm painting them. And it was, you know, because all my reference points are from photos. And then it just became more intimate. And it became about women, and it became about me being middle-aged, and I started to talk to other women about what they felt like when they became middle-aged, and I started to do some more nudes of different friends, my friend Tracy, my friend April, and then I painted a couple of 20-somethings that one of them just is, she's really talented, and she's also just like has an interesting look, and she had this sort of confidence, and I just was like, wow, I want to paint that. You know, I remember having that look, and I don't know, it just sort of became really personal. And I have to say the abstracts, which are really incredible, like to work on, they're more mathematical because they're about movement, they're about blending, they're about colors, they're about palettes, about reblending, blending again, hidden imagery. It's a really different mindset. And so this was just a whole different way to go. And then I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to keep going. But it took, I mean, I won't lie, like it took a while to sort of have a confidence in that style because it wasn't my original style. And I never even intended for it to be a show, really. And then it sort of just...
It became a happy accident.
Yeah. And then, you know, what it did for me in some strange way, I ended up painting my daughter, both my daughters, actually. And it ended up becoming a very different thing because I realized that I was spending long, long hours with people that I knew, with people I cared about, with like women that I was friends with women that I admired. I also painted a woman that's in her late 80s because I really wanted to see what that was like. And her painting is totally different than the photography. Like I shot her in a rose garden, but I just modernized the entire painting, changed her hair, like did a bunch of different things. And I don't know, I just had a lot of emotion when I was working on it, and I just thought, you know what, I must have needed to do this right now. Like this, you know, and that is back to that thing that we were just talking about is, you know, if you're on a TV show, you don't get to say, ooh, I need to work on these types of scenes, or ooh, I want to work on scenes just between this. You kind of can't control that. You're for hire, they hire you, you come in, and you have control over your character and certain things, but you know, kind of the greatest thing about painting is sort of like writing a poem, or it's about like writing a song. You just kind of get to go, this is actually what I'm interested in right now. And that's kind of what happened with those portraits. It was like, wow, you know, my daughter is becoming a preteen and I'm becoming middle-aged, and this is what interests me right now. Like, I was interested in women at this age and who they were and who they were going to become. And then, like, what makes us become the older women, right? And so I also painted my friend Beth Grant, who I'd done a movie with a long time ago, and she's someone I admire. She does a lot of different characters. She never plays the same thing twice. She's just really talented, and she's also a North Carolina girl. And so for me, it was a much more connected show. And then it just worked out that I could show it in London, and so that worked out really well. And then we'll see how it goes. So, I mean, so far the
solo in London.
My first solo in London. Not my first solo show, but my
in first, London. Yeah, your first solo in London.
And, you know, I'll have to say, like, when I was with the foundation and we were looking at different shows, we were always looking at London. Everybody's looking at London, but I was painting 14-footers, and I have to say, it's hard to find space in London. I mean, at the level I'm at, you know, those are big paintings. And so I think a portrait show is a perfect fit there. So, you know, and then I just did the Florence Biennale, and that was abstracts. And I have a museum offer in Amsterdam next summer, so that may be abstracts or it may be a hybridization of both, because I'm kind of in this place now where I have to figure out what I want to do next.
Your canvases are for the most part, huge.
The portraits are very traditional sizes.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to say that the first time I sat in a chair while I was working, because I never sit in a chair when I paint the abstracts. Maybe I'm just getting old. I just needed to sit down. I'm not sure. But
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. So, okay, so you have shows coming up, and what's the driving force behind your pieces? I mean, so you know you have a show coming up. Where do you start, or should I say, what's the process for you?
This part, I think, is one of the hardest parts. Well, first, on a technical level, you start with things that inspire you and things that you're capable of handling, you know, and for me, what I was always looking for, and I still don't think I've accomplished it, is light. Like, how does light hit somebody's back? How does light hit their hair? Like, my daughter's biracial, so I have a picture of her that I shot on the nighttime, and she was looking at the sunset, and it was like, how does light hit her hair? She has great hair, you know. And then how do you transfer that into paint, you know? And so what you learn is there's like 6 different colors in that hair, and then how it blends together, and then how you, like, do you overblend it? Do you like, I mean, this is more technical stuff, but for me, I start really technical, and then I kind of move back and go, okay, what's the emotional tone of this? And then sort of move back after I've done maybe 6 or 7 pieces. And not all the pieces come together because I'm like, wow, that's technically interesting but emotionally boring, and so you have to go next. I can't do that. And then you kind of hope everything comes together. And for this, I didn't know exactly where it was headed until I had a lot of photo sessions with the women that were in their mid-30s to their, like, I want to say 50s, up to 50s. And there was a click when I shot one of my friends who was 47 that just ended a relationship, something that she thought was really going to work. And she was vulnerable, and we've been friends since our early 20s, so we know each other really well. And I just, hey, can I just shoot you really quick? We were actually on our way to a Lakers game, so we're about to do something really fun. And I was like, can I just shoot you in your house? And there was so much in her face. I was like, God, I have to paint this. I have to find a way to paint this. And she has beautiful tattoos, so I was like, I thought that was kind of interesting too. And her pieces ended up being The Warrior, which is a really lovely kind of long landscape piece. And then the other one is Heavy in Your Arms. And I just felt like there was this feeling of, you know, there's a look whenever I've like photographed and then painted women that were a little bit older that had gone through a little more. It's not that kind of same look when someone that's 19 that took a picture, you know?
Right.
Because regardless of even what you're talking about that day, the history is in all of, not just the lines that you sort of earned, but just in your eyes. And I just wanted to see how much I could capture that, you know. And then when I painted Sandy, who's in her late 80s, there was this whole different energy. And then it started to come together. So I would say 6 pieces of testing certain things out and then sort of moving into something. And then that starts to influence what you're going to paint next. A lot of times when you're painting for exhibition, you hit your stride like right towards that like last mile, you know, that last month or two. So it's tricky.
Do you feel any kind of pressure, you know, as it draws closer to a show?
Oh yeah, it's terrible. It's great because sometimes there's always, for the way I work is I like the pressure. So I had a really good architect friend, and he used to say, you know, Laurel, that last piece painted is the first piece sold. And that's been true of every single show I've ever had. The last piece painted was the first piece sold. I had no idea how correct he was in that moment, but it was true. And so I totally think there's something sort of magic that happens right at the very end when you start to feel comfortable and maybe proud of some pieces, and you're just kind of, it's all coming together, and then you push yourself to do just a few more. And I actually just did that. I added, not that quickly, but I did add 4 pieces. And then, you know, there's pieces, and this is what's devastating, there's pieces you can work on for months, and they just blow up in your face, and they're not going to work, and they just don't make the cut. That's a really hard feeling, because you're like, oh my God, I just spent so many hours on this. You know, this is a 2-floor show, so it's a lot larger than I would want it to be. my ideal show would be 10 pieces, not 24.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But there was a second floor, and we had to decide whether we were going to work with it or not. So we did.
And the show is, what, a week long from the 17th to the 21st?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so far we've gotten great press. We just did Art Forum, Art in America, a bunch of different London magazines, Galleries magazine, and it's just been great. Like it's been a very smooth press so far. Excuse me, and a good experience. So, and also an interesting transition from abstract and do this. But you know what? I found that most people are like awesome. Like they're like, great. This is, it's just like exercising another muscle. I mean, you wouldn't play the same character twice, so why keep playing the same style?
Well, no, that's true. That's a great analogy. And, what I find interesting, or what I like about the pieces in this show, for the most part, I couldn't tell if they were actual painting or the photographs. They so closely resemble the photographs.
They're totally photo-based. Like if you look at Richter or Laurel Holloman, I mean, a lot of people that work are with photo-based. So I had to fight the photorealism sometimes because some of them are more photorealistic, and then I'd go back and add splotchiness or freckles, or I'd splotch out the lips more, and because it didn't want it to be so photo-based, And so that's the tricky part, but at the same time, they're a hybridization, so it's sort of like it's a whole beginning of everything, from the photo to the painting to the whole thing is a statement. So although they're all in canvas, they're very based in photography. The last few pieces, there's some pieces that just got added that I dragged the bottom. So they're very dragged out at the bottom, and it was two really young children, and I just wanted to make them a little bit darker and a little bit different. But I didn't want to drag out their faces. So, and when I say drag, I mean take like a hog brush and drag it out at the end. So you really kind of, after you've set up that canvas, you really blur it out. So you could do like hours of detail, and then you sort of really make it blurry again. Okay. Which is, a style that Richter did a lot. So, which I think is, done right. It's really beautiful.
That's pretty interesting. Take me back to abstract for a second, because I'm trying to get an understanding of that process. What pops in your mind when you start a piece of abstract?
Abstract paintings are like, sometimes there's 6, 7, 17 layers of different colors and different paints. Whereas when you're working in like portraits, you start like at the cheek and then the ear, and then that, depending on the skin tone of the person, whether they're white or Asian or black, whatever, like then you might do raw umber and portrait pink and then some burnt sienna, and then you kind of, people don't notice there's a lot of purple in people's skin. There's a lot of purple in the shadows of their jawline. But with abstracts, there's no map. Do you know what I mean? Because you're not starting from the jawline or the ear, or what I usually do is I start from the eyes and go out. Because I'm better with eyes, but I'm terrible with hair. So in abstract, you start in a whole different way, where you might just start with one sweeping motion. Like you might start with some dark colors that are going to be underneath, and then put all your underpainting next to them, so you're going to get a swash of light. Like if the reach sort of is an abstract, but it looks a little bit like a woman's hand, like reaching out of the water. So in order to get that shadow of that hand, you have to start with like different colors of black, and then create that outline. And then how you lighten it up with different underpainting, different colors of white, and then what you blend out past that creates whatever that movement is. If that movement is abstract, but it could look like water, it could look like sky, it could look, there's so many different things. And so it's kind of like, I guess if you were going to go to drumming circle and you start drumming, right? So you just start drumming and hear and listen, and it would become sort of improvisational. And that's, for me, the experience with abstracts becomes much more of an improvisational moment, where I might start one way, painting itself visually looks like something, so I push towards what I'm seeing. Whereas when you're working from, portrait-based stuff, which is based on photography, or even if you alter the photography, like you might change their hair, you might change some color or the palette or the background, you're still kind of working from, in my mind, like a map, right?
Right. Yeah.
But there's no map in abstract. So in a strange way, you're sort of, you're improvising. Like I feel like when I'm painting portraits, it's a scripted thing, and when I do abstract, it's an improvisation. And that's the trickiest thing about abstracts, because they really, really work when they're really, for me, vibrant in color and have some sort of movement that you kind of can't explain where the movement's coming from. And I still think it's something I am still learning.
Some of your pieces that seem very fluid, you know, like it's still, but hard to describe because again, I'm the layman here. But there was a piece that's all blue, and it just seems fluid. It's like this thing is moving, or it appears to be moving somewhat. You know.
No, I love that you said that. That's like the best thing you can tell to somebody about abstract is that it's moving or that it's three-dimensional somehow.
Yeah.
You know.
That's what it is. That's definitely what it is. Now, you have posters of your work.
We do prints because, you know, when I was in college and I always would have a print of some artist that I really liked because I was like, okay, I could have a print and I could like frame it, but I can't really get original painting. So I probably still can't get original painting. Like, I just was like, this is a good thing to offer. And, like just coming from acting to just be the producer of everything and run your own corporation and run your own studio was like exciting. So part of that was, I guess maybe 2012, I decided to make prints, and I wasn't really sure if like anyone wanted them. I was like, oh, I guess I'll do these prints, and it worked great. Like I'll have to say, they're very popular, and I think it's a nice thing to offer because, you know, when you do a show, there's only 24 pieces, and if they sell out, that's it. That's all. So the print thing is part of the whole process. When I'm on show deadlines, it's really tricky to kind of keep that going. So I don't know if I'll just turn that over to someone else or turn it over to a print company, but
I would get a couple of pieces. Not the original, if you get it.
Cool.
To your daughters. One is 11 or 12, is it?
I got an 11-year-old. 7-year-old.
Okay.
So that 7-year-old was a baby on that last season of the LA.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they have any interest at all in what you do?
They do. They kind of get involved and they come to the studio, and I knew I made a right choice because at one point, 2 years into painting, I had really great studio and felt like it was a lot of fun. And my daughter was sick one day, and she said, "Come pick me up," and I don't feel good. And I'm a single mom. At that moment, you gotta still work, right? So I brought her back to the studio and I had it upstairs where she could sleep and watch TV or whatever. And so I was putting her to bed, and she looked at me and she was like, "I like you so much better as a painter." Oh. And I go, "Why?" She goes, "It's much more fun to hang out here than in your trailer." Because she had been on set for 3 years on Ellen. And I guess, you know, trailers get kind of small when your kids get older. And it was the sweetest thing to say, and it was one of those moments where I was like, oh, shit, I might have to keep painting. But in that way, I think because I work somewhere where they can make a mess, and they can be creative, and they can, you know, they can do art. And I actually went to my daughter's class, and I taught abstract art last year a couple of times, and I think it's something very tangible for them. And interesting enough, they're both very athletic. They're both into soccer. And, but they love a day where they just do crafts. So if I'm going to the art store, they want to come with me. And it's something that we can all do together. You know, so I like that they like it, but I put no pressure on them. I mean, they're strong girls, so they just tell me what they want to do. And right now they're very into sports. So I'm a full-time painter and also part-time soccer mom.
Just an average, everyday person.
Yeah.
Same stuff like anyone else, you know.
Yeah.
Unless you tell me, well, I drive a minivan with those little stick people in the back that says soccer mom.
I don't do that. I don't do that. I like my Lexus. That's what I drive. I just know stick people. But no. It's funny. No, but you know what I did do? It's kind of funny. I was like, you know, sometimes when they're at soccer practice, I just run the field because I'm like, I haven't had time to do anything like go to the gym, so I think I'll just work out while they're practicing. But no, it's good. I mean, so far I've found a balance, and then, I mean, and they've traveled some great places. They went to the Venice Biennale with me, and they were there for I had a week-long installation, and then My oldest got to go to all the Biennale exhibitions, and she really enjoyed them because Biennale in Venice is very interactive. There's installations, there's music, there's dance, and, you know, it's been, I think it's been a really nice thing for them. So, and now they're very critical because now they're like, I don't like that painting. That sucks. You know? I got to, you know, deal with that one.
Yeah. No, that's funny. You mentioned having a show where in New York coming up next summer, you said?
I have a New York offer and an Amsterdam offer, but right now I'm focused on Amsterdam because it's a museum. So that would be that's kind of a big thing. So, well, I'll know more about that because I go to Amsterdam a couple of days after I go to London. So another different thing about, painting is everything's about a year out, you know, so if you commit to an exhibition, you're looking at a year of painting. So it's a slower moving process, but I actually don't mind that. I like it. So this would probably be next summer because for a 2-room show, I just did 24 pieces and it took me a year. And they weren't even big. It's a long, patient process, and to cure an oil painting properly also takes some time too. You know, oils, they don't dry as quickly as others. You know.
Right. Well, I was wondering about New York because I know a lot of your shows happen in Europe, and I read somewhere that they know you in Europe more as an artist
than
an actor. So I'm just wondering, would there be a lot of shows here in the U.S. for us to look forward to?
I hope so. I mean, to be really honest, I purposely did that because I didn't want to be recognized as the actress first, and I felt like this is going to need to die down. I don't know if it's going to take 5 years or 7 years or 10 years. And what I love about Europeans is you could say, oh yeah, I used to work in film, and they just think it's normal. They think it's normal that you could paint, you could direct a movie, you could act in a movie, you could write a movie, you could do performance art. They just sort of see it as a creative bone. You know, they don't really say, oh, you only do that. I think in general, American culture wants to say, well, if you do that and you do it well, then there's no way you can do anything else. You know, and we kind of a lot tougher on each other, which I think is unfortunate. And for me, what I do in the United States when I bring my art here, I want to be in a very, like, kind of maybe very protected, maybe academic environment. Maybe it's a museum, maybe it's a small show, but I want it to be the right thing. And I've turned down a lot of shows here because I just knew it wasn't the way I wanted to approach the art world in the United States. Mm-hmm. And being at the Venice Biennale and being at things at that level, or a Biennale in Argentina, and Berlin is also an incredible city to do a solo show. You know, I just wanted to, I guess I could say, just be patient and make sure that it's kind of done the right way. And that is the mentality of an artist. You have to be very patient. It's a long career. You know, the way I look at it is, like, I'm going to be an old lady painter. You know? But I didn't know that many old lady actresses. The ones I see acting, I still love. You know, like I love Judi Dench and Helen Mirren and all those people. But it's all sort of unfolding in Europe in the right way, a way that I want it to. But I'm just still doing what every other artist is doing. Just do my grants, do my proposals, try for museums, try for competitions, do the gallery shows. You know, you really have to kind of keep at it. You know, there's not a manager or an agent that sort of pushes that through. You have to have your own perseverance for it.
And you do it all yourself.
Totally, yeah. Now I'm not sponsored or anything. Just me in my studio.
Awesome.
But I get a lot of support. I get help, you know, but it's intense. You know, what I love is that I'm meeting a lot more curators. So I just met with curator in Venezia for a small contemporary art museum. And, you know, I feel like I want to work with good people. I want to work with smart people. And I think that's the way you learn something. Is that you don't come in thinking you know everything. You go in going, what can I learn? And who can teach me? Right. And I've really been lucky because for me, art became a very global thing. And I have a very global view of the world now, thanks to all the Europeans I've been working with and the traveling I've done. And that's an incredible thing. Like, I don't think I would have gotten that sitting in a trailer on a TV show in Los Angeles. I just wouldn't have gotten that world view. You know?
No. In film, because, film, you're on location in different countries. But matter of fact, wasn't they all were shot in Vancouver?
That's true. Yeah. I love Canada. My mom's Canadian. Yeah, Vancouver's a cool place.
Gotcha. If I may,
okay.
I would like to dispel some rumors because, got some diehard fans. So we could probably take the time right now to dispel some rumors that's out there.
Cool.
I Googled you because I Googled all the characters. So I'm like, what are they doing now? What's happening now? The where are they now kind of thing. That's me. I'm always researching for my show. And these things pop up, So you talk to many of the cast members, and you guys are cool. We've already, taken care of that. So that takes care of all that stuff. That's kind of
there's out there. I think people want to think there's some drama. There's just no drama there. This is not. I mean, we got along. We worked together. We finished the show. We went off. We did other things.
I think it's because they expect that because it's a bunch of women, there has to be drama. And that's not always the case, really.
I mean, that's just part of it. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'll have to tell you, going off and working on other things after that, it's great to work with a bunch of women. My God. There's some really awful, sexist men, there's some really awful misogyny in Hollywood. So, I mean, in general, for me, my experience on TV was, very empowering to work with a group of women. And just in any atmosphere, you might have artistic conflicts sometimes, but I think the end result of all of it is that it's incredibly empowering. I go to installations in Italy, and I have a team of people in front of me, and they're all men, and they're all Italian, and I don't even speak Italian, so I have to, tell everyone what to do, and that doesn't come over so well, And so I really did have a huge appreciation for working with and around all those women, because I forgot after 7 years what it was like to kind of be in the rest of the world, where I'm like, oh, there's not a woman here that has my back. And sometimes there is. I don't mean that, but sometimes there's not, right? So for me, I have a even deeper appreciation for it, and so I kind of look at it like, wow, that was a blessing,
Quite understandable. Well, and again, that's just one of those things that's out there, and we've already discussed if the movie came back, would she do that? Maybe, maybe not. Right now it's all about the art, and so tell me, your long-term goal, or let's just take 5 years. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh, I still hope I'm exhibiting. I hope I'm doing more museum stuff, maybe less gallery stuff, maybe teaching, something like that. Maybe I'd try something in filmmaking, but it probably wouldn't be in an entertainment way that most people would see it. It would probably be an art film. It'd be using video to express what I want in an exhibition. And it could be it wouldn't be very commercial in any way. I'm positive it wouldn't. So it would be very repetitive, kind of just something, maybe testing out, doing installation. I don't know. I mean, I'm very immersed in the art world, so, and I kind of live separately from pop culture every day in a studio, and I just have a different sort of, I'm part of pop culture with social media, but my goals aren't very connected to it. If that makes any sense.
It does. I imagine you kind of have to shut out the world to allow the creative side to come through.
I mean, I had even some people advise me not to do portraits. They're like, oh, you do these abstracts and they sell, and you're being collected all over Europe, and you're showing in Monaco, and you're winning Biennale. People just were like, why would you even change? And I was like, well, because I don't care if I sell. I actually just want to be a better painter. I want to grow. I want to change. I want to change. You can't put a price tag on that. I want to change for me. Right? And then I knew that some of the pieces, I'm like, I guess I'll paint to people, maybe my next show will be only women in their 90s. I have no idea if that will have any commercial value whatsoever, but if I like it, I'll do it.
Well, and that's the freedom of art. That's the freedom of doing what you do, and that it allows you to take it wherever you need it to, wherever you want to, You take it there.
In my mind, like if I were to critique what I've just done, I would probably move away from some of the photorealism into sort of a hybridization of the abstraction I did in portraits and sort of get into a different area where there's a little more surrealism or something in there where I'm exploring that. You know, I just wanted to become more confident in the medium first, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
And so kind of go from there and see how it unfolds. But I definitely, after this show, was like, wow, eyes definitely are the windows of our souls. Like, there's definitely something going on, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It speaks of wisdom. It speaks of experience. As a child, it speaks of innocence, you know, and as we go through life and we gather experience and all the good and bad that goes along with that, it speaks to others.
Yeah.
It really does. So, but it's been great.
Good.
Again, I wanted to know just all about you, your art, you know, the transition from acting to art and how it all happens and how it all unfolds. And,
yeah, you asked great questions. I mean, some people, I think, when they want to talk about art, they're not really sure exactly how to talk about it. It's kind of interesting.
Okay. Great. Now, what message do you want to send to the world, leave with your fans, or just to get out there?
You know, in this time where we get on the internet and we are seeing all this violence, we need to try to find some love and some peace. People need to sort of put that first instead of some of the other drama that we get caught up in sometimes. I think even myself, I have to step away from the drama and say, hey, I'm going to focus on what's real. For me, what's real is that we are a society that needs to be more focused on peace and love and be more charitable.
Okay, great. Well, I wish you a safe flight tomorrow, a killer show, just knock 'em dead, which I have no doubt you will. Everything's going to sell out. It's going to be a great show from what I've seen. And I thank you like 110% for taking the time out to chit-chat with me for a bit.
Cool. No problem. Thank you.
You're welcome. You have a good
care.
day.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Live with Chaye, and that was Laurel Holloman. To find out more about Laurel and her arts, visit laurelholloman.net.